Ezekiel 9, 1-4, the marking of the innocent. Then he cried in my ears with a loud voice, saying, Draw near, you executioners of the city, each with his destroying weapon in his hand. And lo, 6 men came from the direction of the upper gate, which faces north, every man with his weapon for slaughter in his hand. And with them was a man clothed in linen with a writing case at his side, and they went in and stood beside the bronze altar. Now the glory of the God of Israel had gone up from the cherubim on which it rested to the threshold of the house, and he called to the man clothed in linen who had the writing case at his side. And the Lord said to him, Go through the city, through Jerusalem, and put a mark upon the foreheads of the men who sigh and groan over all the abominations that are committed in it. Overview. The man in linen is endowed with all manner of virtues, pseudo-Dionysius. The mark on the foreheads of the innocent is a sign that saves them, Athanasius, but it is an inward sign on the heart, not just an outward sign on the forehead, Augustine. It is also a sign of repentance, Chrysostom, because of the saving power of the cross, Cyprian. The sign of the cross begins public prayer as a way of recalling baptism. Horse C. 9-2, the man clothed in linen. The garments of the priesthood as virtues, pseudo-Dionysius. The priestly vestment signifies the capacity to guide people spiritually to the divine and mysterious sights and to consecrate one's whole life. And the cincture is an indication of the control exercised by these intelligent beings over their generative powers. They signify also their practice of gathering together, their unifying absorption, the harmonious ease with which they tirelessly circle about their own identity. The spears and the axes represent their discriminating skills amid the unlikeliness of things, the sharp clarity and efficacy of their powers of discernment. 9-4, a mark on the foreheads of the innocent. The sign is there to be seen, Athanasius. Thus the devil suffers and is dishonored, and although he still ventures with shameless confidence to disguise himself, yet now, wretched spirit, he is detected rather by those who bear the sign on their foreheads. And he is even rejected by them, and is humbled put to shame. For even if now that he is a creeping serpent, he shall transform himself into an angel of light, yet his deception will not profit him, for we have been taught that though an angel from heaven preach to us any other gospel than we have received, he is anathema. Outward sign on the forehead, Augustine. But maybe that person wasn't yet a Christian. We at least, brothers and sisters, should listen, we to whom as believers the gospel is chanted, we by whom the one who said all this is worshipped, whose sign is worn by us on our foreheads and held in our hearts. It makes a great deal of difference, you see, where a person keeps the sign of Christ, whether on the forehead or both on the forehead and in the heart. You heard when the holy prophet Ezekiel was speaking how before God sent an exterminator of a wicked people, he first sent a marker and said to him, Go and mark with a sign the foreheads of those who groan and grieve over the sins of my people, which are committed among them. Yet for all that they groan and grieve, and this is why they have been marked with a sign on the forehead of the inner self, not the outer one. There is a forehead of the face, you see, and a forehead of the conscience. In fact, sometimes the inner forehead gets a knock, and the outer one blushes. It either blushes for shame or turns pale with fright. The cross, a sign of repentance, Chrysostom. I have heard many, after such experience, blame themselves and say, What advantage is it that I have grieved? I have not recovered my money, and I have injured myself. But if you have grieved on account of sin, you have blotted it out and reaped the greatest pleasure. If you have grieved for your brothers who have fallen, you have both encouraged and comforted yourself, and have also restored them. And even if you were not to profit them, you have an abundant recompense. And that you may learn that grieving for those who have fallen, though we should not at all benefit them, still brings us a large reward. Hear what Ezekiel says, or rather what God speaks through him. For when he had sent certain messengers to overturn the city and to consume all the dwellings with sword and fire, along with their inhabitants, God charges one of them, Set a mark on the forehead of those that groan and are in anguish. And after charging the others and saying, Begin from my holy ones, he goes on to add, But do not touch whoever has the sign on him. the saving power of the cross. Cyprian. God says that only those can escape who have been reborn and signed with the sign of Christ. When sending his angels to lay waste the world and to destroy the human race, he threatens more seriously than the last time. This sign pertains to the passion and blood of Christ, and that he is kept safe and unharmed, whoever is found in this sign. Prayers begin with the sign of the cross. Horsiaci. At the beginning of our prayers, let us sign ourselves with the seal of baptism. Let us make the sign of the cross on our foreheads, as on the day of our baptism, as it is written in Ezekiel. Let us not first lower our hand to our mouth or to our beard, but let us raise it to our forehead, sing in our hearts. We have signed ourselves with the seal. This is not like the seal of baptism, but the sign of the cross was traced on the forehead of each of us on the day of our baptism.